I should have started recording this because I missed that. And I dislike that because it was such an interesting introduction.
I can paraphrase it. You know, I would just say, you know, I did a lot of deep research into, well, let me start by saying I see this massive skill gap in the business events industry post-COVID because we lost 70% of our community. So now, and the stakeholders and the businesses and even the guests, all of their expectations for the performance and the experience of business events has gone way up. And so if I'm a guest attending a business function, my expectations are through the roof that it's going to be customized and personalized for me, that it's going to look and behave like a consumer brand experience. And from a stakeholder perspective, they're seeing in this remote workforce environment that events are the only opportunity to build community. They're the only opportunity to even, you know, create and live their culture or share information. And so now they have a real critical business purpose, which has created this whole demand for elevated strategic and advanced level needs. And then our ecosystem, because they're all brand new and they've been around for 3 years, it has a very amateur, very beginner level skill set. So when I started seeing this a couple of years ago and I'm going, oh my God, how are organizations going to train on this? How are they going to up level these skills specifically in critical thinking, strategic thinking, creative thinking? I'm not seeing it anywhere. You know, I attend conferences all the time. I did a lot of research on the curriculum, even at conferences that exist, and we're just not hitting the needs, the skills breakdown. So then I started breaking down and identifying the very micro skills that are needed to get us from here to there, to bridge that gap. And then I started to compare that towards 10 of the best hospitality programs or the most popular hospitality programs in the United States. And I realized that from a curriculum perspective, 1 out of the 10 is offering what I would imagine to be like the pizza pie of skills. And the rest are offering 1 or 2 of them as electives. And so like this problem isn't going to solve itself. We've got to figure this out. We've got to provide better knowledge to our people. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so maybe one of the key things is that the root causes is that the educational system is such an isolated institution.
Yeah.
That they want to sell you the fact that they are connected with the latest practices or whatever. There's a lot of beautiful flyers and websites out there to try to sell you into the amazing programs that they give. And then when you start taking the classes, you see, well, that in fact, the textbooks, they are maybe obsolete or they are too theoretical and they don't have enough of the current practices and expertise that is required to, and they don't train you to think in ways that would be useful for the industry. And so they give you a lot of what you don't need and very little of what you need.
Absolutely. And when you're hiring, there's huge gaps in what the applicant is expecting to deliver and learn and what the skills of the hiree. Like, okay, there's a huge gap in do you think I need to have critical thinking skills versus me thinking I have to have critical thinking skills. There's all of this data that shows there's a huge misunderstanding. And to your point, I don't think universities and our industry are close enough. There's not enough design thinking, collaborative, future-focused conversations that are happening that would take people like me who are deep into this industry and saying, let's project.
Do you remember what you were saying?
Yeah. So for the business events community, I would say it makes me sad because I have been in this sector of the wider meetings and events sector, which includes consumer marketing, brand marketing, includes weddings and social functions, and the whole gamut. Me sitting in the business events segment, what I see is we are doing absolutely nothing to attract the best minds coming out of the best schools. We are not behaving like creative leaders. We are not supporting our creative thinkers and our strategic thinkers within the business events sector by providing them discipline-focused curriculum that would attract them in college, right? That would say, hey, we're your people. Come over here to the business event sector. There's innovative, creative, crazy things that are happening here. We're going to take care of your big, beautiful, creative brain. No, they're going to agency, they're going to marketing, they're going to all of these other adjacent communities. And I don't blame them, because even me, being who I am in this industry, I still don't feel like I have a great cohort of thinkers, big thinkers, to challenge me, to train me, a place where I can go at industry functions that is for strategic leaders or for creative leaders. We're all scattered and we're like invisible citizens within this greater community.
Yeah, I suppose that the level of awareness of the need for certain skills and in different industries is going to be different. There's going to have there could be some factors. One of them could be the size of the industry. The other thing is going to be the history of how things, what we call best practices and not good practice. So when an industry it tends to be defined by something that is very formulaic. This is how we do things here. Yeah. This is how things work. And you find that 90% of the industry is like that. Then what they are excluding is creative thinkers by definition, because of the way they So I wonder whether some industries, and I don't know yours that well to say that could be what's happening, but there are other industries that's happening for sure. The other part is that industries that have become obsolete is not because they had people that knew how to reinvent themselves. They just were too stacked, and then they disappeared. So they could have changed certain things, to add other types of value to whatever they were doing. I'm thinking, I do like this whole thing about businesse events, trade fairs, all that. I lived in Singapore for 13 years, so I was part of a lot of those things. And I wish I had some more. I've had some more training in how to do these events, go to a trade fair, have my booth or whatever, and how to connect with people that know a lot about something else that I don't know about.
Sure.
And
you learn.
Yeah, you learn as much as you can to give the best service you can.
Absolutely.
Because I was in the publishing side, but it was about petroleum engineering. But I was not. I didn't have a degree in petroleum engineering myself. Right,
but you needed to know enough about it to write about it, and you needed to know where to plug into those conversations to get the sound bites, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I need to find out. So, what is the information you need, and how I can go and get it for you.
Yes.
And how much are you willing to pay for that information?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So that was the name of the game. But having said that, I want to go back to some of these questions. Do you have a definition for creativity? What is your definition of creativity?
I don't know that I have a specific definition. I think I have more like pillars for what it looks like. To me, creativity, every single one of us is creative. And to me, the creativity piece of it isn't that you're an artist and I see that you can draw really well, or that you are somebody who, can make beautiful cinematography. Like that isn't just a sole definition of creativity.
Yes.
To me, somebody who can solve complex projects, problems is very creative, because you have to think out of the box on how to. So a mathematician, for example, could be incredibly creative to me. I would say that from my experience, creativity is a team sport. It's better and richer when you can bring diverse people together to develop something and to really ideate and create something together. I would say the last thing that comes to mind as far as a pillar of creativity is there has to be some level of purpose behind it, functional purpose, thought, intentional reasoning behind why you're bringing something to life. What problem are you solving through this creativity? Even if it's just beautiful, what was the strategy? What was the thought process that got us there? to me, creativity for creativity's sake is great, but that's not a business. It doesn't bring business value. And so creativity to me and where I am in my career right now also has to make business sense, which is why those three pillars really stick out.
Yeah. And I mean, you've since you do some work on design thinking.
Yes.
It's also about finding what is valuable for other people.
So the design thinking methodology for me, mm-hmm. when I learned about that, which was probably six plus years ago, mm-hmm. I stumbled upon it through research, and I felt like I'd found my home. I felt like I'd found a secret language that my mind was trying to speak, that someone else put words and process behind how I already thought. And when I dove into design thinking and really fell in love with it, I started to see how empathy and truly understanding the people that you're designing for, anything that you're designing, is really the crucial step. And you take the longest time really understanding the purpose or the audience, and then you solve for that. What I also appreciated about the design thinking process was its scalability and its universal application to a conversation cadence, a problem we're solving, anything. You go through these very specific phases. You don't accelerate past any of them. You don't skip one. And when you follow that, the results are more and more emotional, more engaging, enriched in every single way. And by following that process as a team, the culture, trust, and innovation that is brought together and formed through that collaboration is really the magic behind it. So to me, that everything I do is backed by that. I would also say that, especially in business, being creative is not a light bulb moment that happens randomly, and we hope it happens today. We hope I've gotten enough sleep, and we hope that you and I have, blocked enough time in our calendar, and we're going to solve it right now. We've got to have a process that drives creating ideas and bringing them to life. And for me, that's the design thinking process as a foundation. There's other tools and things that I use, but without that process to drive it, I don't understand how you'd be able to scale creativity in any business.
Yeah. I mean, this whole thing is also the experience and the learning through practice, this whole idea of prototyping and then saying, well, I can refine this. I did my best trying to understand these things, but then I realized that there's something I didn't take into consideration. And so being able to make changes to the way not only the service you thought you were going to provide, but also how you understood what people needed and how they receive your solution. All that is an amazing circle, or I would say confirmation of your assumptions, of your insights from your observation and all that stuff. So the interesting thing about this that is I would say is deep communication that solves latent problems or challenges that people are facing. Because very often what happens is that if the problem is too clear, and some people will disagree with this, like Anthony Ulrich, if it's too clear, then I wonder whether some people, it's an opinion.
Yeah.
When you observe that they suffer the results of that thing, but they take it for granted. Oh, I'm just a subject. Yeah. And then now I don't have to, so there's some benefits that people will appreciate tremendously, but they will never say that they are facing these things because maybe they feel embarrassed that they have to put up with the stuff.
Yeah. Well, and that prototyping, at least from the world that I come from, business events is very, very fast paced. And so it's this constant, and you're running against a wall because that date of that event is happening. It's not construction and development where we can, we'll just kick that back 3 weeks. Like that doesn't happen. So it's high stress, it's fast paced. And for that reason, I think many stakeholders and clients, they might spend enough time. I'll asterisk that. Usually they don't, but they could spend enough time identifying the problem and understanding what they need to solve, what they need to create. But then they're in such a rush and such a hurry to check the box and get it done. They just blow past that prototype. They blow past the beta test and the straw man moment. And that's when revisions, iterations, and failure occur. But people are so wired to want to get it done and move on to the next task that they rob themselves of the opportunity to get things done right the first time by just following that process.
Yeah, at least to a solution that is good enough to give the value that you're looking for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in your experience, I don't know if you do you do facilitation of creative problem solving or creative methodologies, or do you do training as well? Do you help people how to think differently?
100%. So I would say in my past, I owned an organization, I owned a company, and I sold that company to a larger organization. And then I joined their team as a senior leader. And the reason that they purchased the organization, the core reason, it was a viable business, it was a great business, but the core reason was the creative process. So it was taking this creative process and then scaling it in an organization that was 8 times larger and had been decentralized for 40 years. So for us, it was creating a centralized process for the first time. And the reason that my organization was acquired and was attractive was because creativity was a skill set that clients had identified was lacking in the larger organization. It was like the constant reason that they were losing business and missing the mark and not making an impact. So they acquired us for the creativity to then level it up. When I presented the solution to the board, my role was really to infuse a creative mindset across the entire organization, to drive it into the DNA of the organization by way of a process. Now, the majority of that organization was logistics and operations. And so how could they reframe their role as being creative, the tasks and the value that they brought, the contributions that they brought to the team as creative? And so we first had to demystify that you're not creative, but you guys over there are. That's the creative team, and they are the only ones who are creative. We had to break down that misbelief. And then what we needed to do was infuse process at every level and in every role that sort of connected back to the design thinking process that we launched, and then supported that with all these different tools that then we trained on. A lot of this, we had to hire specialized groups of people with different skills that didn't exist anymore. We did have to kind of break things apart and put them back together. But there is a piece where you train, and this is where I feel like the universities are really missing it. There's a human behavior piece, particularly when we're creating events and experiences for others. Understanding how people behave, the psychology, the sociology, all of it comes into play with how you design a space, with how an event flows, with how your timeline unfolds, with all of it. It's this huge orchestration. Human behavior is nowhere in any curriculum in any university program for hospitality. And it crushes me because that to me is the central building block for my teams. If you don't understand human beings and how they behave and how they think and how they interact with each other, how can we possibly design experiences for them to connect? I don't understand. Yeah, you can learn how to do the contract. You can learn about the venue and the power and the catering. We are in the business of human beings. And so that was always a missing link. But I would say that changing that mindset is like step 1. Step 2 is behaving and living that. But you've got to drive that into the process, because if that isn't done consistently at every level, then there's cracks. Then you've got bright spots, but it's not really flowing in through the center artery, so to speak, of your company. But that takes time. I mean, to me, that takes 18 months to 2 years conservatively.
Yeah, because there's the whole concept of awareness, how they perceive certain things. Oh, when I do this now, I used to do this, but I do this now, I see more value. I know why I'm doing this. Yeah. So any type of creativity has an element of metacognition, which is your ability to choose how you're going to think.
Yeah.
And that is you're empowering people to be able to achieve greater results by choosing different ways of thinking. But and this is so abstract that people, if you are not into it, it's very difficult to connect. So one of the things that when you were talking, I was thinking about the problem with universities is that they are biased towards knowledge and not towards skills. So skills is something that you acquire, so it becomes second nature to you, so you can bring value to people because that's the way you behave.
Right.
Those are
skills. Very valid point. Very good point.
And I cannot become skillful by reading books. I have to engage in a life transform. Yeah, I have to use my hands, my body. I have to go to events. I have to go through experiences that have been designed for me to learn something, interact with people. And when I'm debriefing these experiences, I realize, yes, these people behave that way. I behave this way. Next month, I'm going to have a similar experience. I'm going to put some of the things that I saw in my textbook, I want to put them into practice. Well, if you had a trainer, they'll tell you, let's simplify this. You do this, and this, and see what value you get. But the moment you go through, because people are here for 3 years, as the problem is they got 3 years of a non-experienced model, which getting a lot of information in the head that they forget. They forget about the information they have, but they don't have the skills in order to go to a business to start offering some value, and that's because, well, that's what one of the biases is that, but the other one is definitely the human interaction, that we don't care about human interactions.
Right. Well, and as far as bridging that gap, because nobody can get the skills, right? Like you can't get 5 years of experience in 1 year, but
yes,
and perhaps I'm wrong, but in the research, I didn't see a lot of real dynamic case studies that were of present current day in the real world challenges of, as an industry, we're facing a sustainability crisis. Business events is one of the worst, performers as it relates to waste. Our industry has a long way to go to being a top performer in that category. Why aren't we sharing some of those sustainability case studies in an interesting and engaging way, but also with the university students to help us solve them? Because our industry, it's like the planners are blaming the hotels, are blaming the airlines, are blaming the supplier. And it's like this, nobody's really solving it. And the people who are coming from the university, and I'm just picking on sustainability because it's an ongoing, non-solvable current day challenge. Why aren't we tapping into these big, beautiful thinkers who deeply care about our planet to say, look, here's what happened at this event. It was not good. These are the things that went wrong. This was all about the people, the audience, the objectives. This is what happened as a result of this, and this not taking place, this thought not being here. How could you have done this differently? Or, this is a large challenge for our industry. Let's get some of these soon to be a part of, newer entry people to help us solve it. Because that's a real world problem that they're going to have to be a part of when they get out there and look for jobs. I feel like there's more we can do, I guess is my point, to help bring experience, real current experience to the university students. Tap into the brain.
So do you know people that I could contact with, be in touch, so I can design or can try to help put in touch with our department that is doing this type of work here, and then maybe we can have a project or a grant to pay for some of this stuff, and have some, not only one, but maybe 2 or 3 students.
Yes.
To write on this subject, but spend some time. I mean, if there is a company that had like 2 or 3 events, and we could go and interview and observe and analyze data, then we could see, well, what do you want to achieve, and then what is the way we are going to measure that, and what are the other variables in terms of to make it more sustainable
Yes.
And which is less waste of space and less waste of time, and how to help.
Yes.
And
And in
people.
doing that, it helps get the thinking of the college student in the same planet as the people in the real world. Because otherwise they're going to join, they're going to be like, oh, sustainability is an issue. Wow, I didn't learn anything about that in college, because we're still learning about stuff that was important 15 years ago. We also need diverse thinkers to help us solve these problems.
Yeah, well, the whole thing is this: you can look at it from in terms of resources, waste, and also as a business. Businesses, they waste a lot of time and money in a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing is how to make a business more sustainable. So there are a couple of areas that I think it could be extremely useful, and they can apply creative thinking and a systems thinking model that can help them to come up with some unique solutions or approaches.
Great.
So, well, we've gone through, I don't know if you've been for about 40 minutes already, but is there any other question that you have there in your list that you really loved?
Let's see. So how might universities help enhance their creative thinking? I would say what universities can do is get deeper into the industry organizations and really live a little bit more into the industry that they're hoping to impact, and share curriculum. There's got to be a way that we can take some of the curriculum and the topics and things that are happening in our industry and infuse them in a meaningful and intentional way into the universities, so that there's not such a gap, that there's got to be more knowledge transfer earlier on as it relates to creative skills. So one of the areas that I feel like I've dedicated most of my time in the last 6 years to this exact thing, which is the scalability of creativity in teams. And that to me is like lightning in a bottle. For me, I wouldn't say easy, but it is doable. Whereas a lot of organizations have absolutely no idea, nor do they have the resources, people, or financial investment and support to invest in creating their own creative process that would drive that scalability. To me, it's the pathway to differentiating. It's the pathway to innovation, to fulfillment and happiness in employees doing more meaningful work. There's all kinds of data on that to support that. It's not just my opinion. That's like,
yes, yeah, that's
real. But to the degree that businesses, medium to large businesses, are investing in processing creativity, how do we scale how that person thinks? Wow, that person thinks amazing. Whatever they're doing, just let's clone them and you've got to actually have a process to extract that information, that experience, break it down into small steps, and create the training, the tools, and the structure to then take that to scale. I would say that's, to me, where I'm like, how are businesses not doing this 10 years ago? How is what I do and how I think not completely normal in every business? But unfortunately, it's not. Fortunately for me, I guess, but also, I'm not everyone's flavor, because not everyone sees the business value behind that. They don't see the ROI. It's not directly related. It's not a direct path to revenue, even though it is, because everything gets elevated by their investment in that. That to me is a huge missing link. And I do speak all over the country, particularly in the business events sector. And I speak a lot on intentional design, and I use the design thinking process, and I use customer empathy and persona maps, and I use journey maps, and I use all of these tools to say, look, these are examples of tools that ignite holistic thinking, that drive collaboration, that really unlock all of your creativity and help you think differently about everyday problems that we're solving. And I would tell you that my reviews are very high. Oh my God, 5 stars. Everything she said was so great. Wow, that was so inspiring, so cool, so practical. And then it's like they don't really do any of it. To your point about being abstract,
Well,
there's no implementation. There's no
yes.
like, wow, that was really valuable. I'm going to invest in doing that at my own company. They look at it and say, that was really cool. And then they turn around and they walk away. And that for me is the most disheartening thing, because I know how powerful these tools are. I know their power in business. And so it's frustrating to not be able to like be like, no, take this more seriously. Like, it's so clear.
So there's a comic I've seen someone asking, who wants to see change? And all the hands went up.
Okay? Of course. Who wants to do it?
Yeah. And then who wants to change? That was the second question. So all the hands went down. So
you nailed it.
Yeah, it's very entertaining to see how successful you have been with other people. And I'm entertained. And I wish that sometimes some of these things, maybe 1 or 2 could happen in my company with me doing nothing, because I want to do every single thing the way I want. Well, this is only a suggestion, but if you play with the power of questions, if you just end your talk with the most meaningful and practical, simple, meaningful, practical solution using your methodology, and with the benefits, savings, whatever, this is what benefit that brought this company. So
that's a good point. What a lot of the proof points are hard to advertise, share. They would have to be, because everything is so proprietary as it relates to those ideas and process, and like your creative process is almost like, I'm showing you under my robe. This is how we do it,
Yes, yeah. So, but a question. I'm going to finish the question because otherwise I will forget it. If you finish with a question, that's your final word. Is a question. Is something they have to take home and answer.
Yeah.
For how long? Or how long are you willing? Or how much are you willing to pay for doing nothing? How much are you willing what is the cost you are willing to pay?
I'm going to write that down.
What is the cost you're willing to pay for doing nothing? What is the cost you're willing? I'm trying to phrase this thing in a way that is more, but so you can, as you go through it, you can make it a bit more challenging. But what is the cost you are willing to pay for doing nothing is something that it's unsettling. I'm just, I wanted to do nothing, but now you're telling me that it's going to cost me something. Well, that's the truth.
It's a really good point, because exactly what you said. The cost is that you're just going to keep complaining, and you're going to keep being inconsistent, and you're going to keep losing clients, and you're going to keep doing average stuff, and your people are going to go because you haven't taken the time to give them the foundation that's going to then make everything better.
Yeah, because a lot of people are thinking in terms of what's happening. Okay, but it's not how it is happening. So they things go downhill and they don't care because they don't notice, because they don't have the lens, which it has to do with, I'm not thinking in the business, I'm thinking about the business. Mm-hmm. And that thinking about the business is how we do things, how this has been deteriorating, has gone downhill. We are giving people half the value that we used to give them. Yeah. People are leaving us. People can't stay here. So there are 4 or 5 indicators that are showing that the company is not doing very well, but we don't care. Right. Because we are only focused on the fact that we are selling something, that we're surviving. And we think that somehow things will change in the future. That around the corner, there's some other hidden market that it's like a gold mine that is going to come to us and is going to help us be whoever we were in the past, without reframing, improving, and changing those things that have become obsolete, that have become that have devalued. It's like you have a car, it devalues in price. You have a business, maybe your business has been devalued and you have not made any effort to upgrade it.
Exactly. Well, and the word how, when you said, that how, I find it, I don't know, fascinating, more than frustrating, I guess, but fascinating. Our industry celebrates these wow experiences. Oh my God, look at this amazing idea, this amazing event that was brought to life. The minute that I kind of lean in and say, well, how was that brought to life? What was the process that delivered that? And if it was like the exception and not the rule, this was your team at your best when all the stars align and you're all doing everything, but this isn't what you produce every single week, every single month. To me, I am less impressed with your result and more impressed with how you got there and how you are setting your team up to get there more often. And every time I'm like, okay, great, but talk to me about your process. They're like, they have no idea how to articulate. It just ended up really great. They just, look at the result. It was amazing. That's nice. That's the light bulb moment. That's when all this, but that's not scalability. That's not consistency. And therefore there's no business plan behind that.
Yeah, not process, business process. Yeah, business process. So you're looking into how the business works and how to make it predictable. You can repeat results and you can
repeatable.
So somehow establish some sort of systems of excellence where things work out at a certain level.
Yes.
And so where are your strengths and how you are. So you pay attention to the key elements in your quality process.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think we've covered a lot of stuff. I wanted maybe to ask you this question. The question is, what is a question that you would like me to ask you?
Okay, so hold on a minute, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Well, my question for you is how are you going to use this information? Like, what are you going to do with your interviews? What's the result that you're looking for? That's a question I have for you before we go to that.
So I'm trying to make it in a short story. This all started with a collaboration with San Miguel de Allende, Mexican institution, Instituto San Miguelense.
Yeah.
And they have a software. They were doing a podcast and everything. And so we started with Full of Energy like 3 months ago.
Of course.
And I have only one more. One of my students is going to interview someone else from Canada. And that's it. We finished more or less 70 interviews. So this, for me, was like a win-win-win situation where my students got to interview people, but I ran out of students, so I did 20 interviews. Then I had people from San Miguel de Allende, the students and faculty, they also interviewed, so they learned about creativity. So we have been exporting goodwill to Mexico and helping students, my students and their students and faculty. That's the second win. And the third one is how this is going to be used through the American Creativity Association. And that is a little bit of a question mark. And the reason is because of we have a very small group trying to do too many things with very little time. So, but the fact is that the best thing to do with 70 hours of interviews is to look for segments of wisdom that we can put together by themes. Okay, so these are something on design thinking that you may want to look into. And so we prepare these programs and then we offer it to us. The short ones will be like, we market them, we just offer it to people as, okay, this is something for you to consider. And then the other ones, if they are a bit more elaborate, and all that will be for members of American Creativity Association, which we are always trying to promote more, to have a few more members. And we will continue to develop slowly, but because we are trying to launch a journal. We are launching a journal for students to and people to submit articles. So that's a 2-year, 18-month process.
Your question to me is, Hillary, would you like to be involved in
Yes.
those things that, like, from an American Creativity Society? I'm not
Yes.
of that. So understanding how I can get in touch with that entity and add value and also learn as much as I can.
Yes. So I'll keep you informed and also in our mailing list, because what we are trying to do is to group people by also interest. And so there's going to be there is a group of people which are teaching creativity in higher education. So we're trying to share how we do this and all that.
Yes.
So that's a great, but that could be maybe not of interest to everybody. I think it's interesting for everybody, but that's because I'm heavily biased in that area.
Sure.
But we are going to have another one, which is going to be the design thinking practitioners. So that's because there are so many tools and so many experiences we can help each other in that area as well, because we come from different industries and we are doing different stuff. So because that's one of the classes I want to be teaching, I've interviewed about 4 or 5 people already with experience in design thinking. Some people from the Netherlands.
Sure.
And so I'm trying to look into this international component as well. And so that is the first group that I was thinking that could be of interest to you.
Mm-hmm.
And because this whole thing about business events, creativity in business events, I don't see how that will take a bit more time to put the group together.
Of course.
Over there. But maybe what we could have is some sort of, what is this whole thing, recreation, this whole thing about, maybe Mays Business School could have a program in this area. So I have to talk to some of these people and see what else would be other people that are interested in this.
And to me, my area of interest is ways to scale creativity in teams. I mean, I've found processes and I've found tools and I've created them, but that's a tiny little drop. If I could connect with other people who are scaling creativity in teams, I mean, that to me is a love language. I could consume that all day long and listen to that, because I'm incredibly passionate about learning what's working for other people.
Did you do any training certification in creative problem solving with Buffalo? No. Buffalo State College at all? No. Okay, I just wanted to ask you. Do you know, have you ever heard about the Foresight thinking profile? Foresight Online?
Mm-mm. Oh. If you think I should pay attention to it, you can send it to me.
Yeah. Well, basically it's because this is an instrument that can give you, so I know Blair Miller and Sarah Terber. I'm just going to write the names here. If you go to LinkedIn, you can connect with them. And
will you email to me?
Yeah.
So that I have the spelling and all that. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to put it in the chat, but I will email to you. Okay, so I'll email to you this foresightonline.com, which is
thank you.
An instrument you can give to people, and you learn how they think creatively for different preferences.
Okay.
And then there's the reason I went there is because they have a new book right now. It's called Good Team and Bad Team. So it's creativity in teams.
That sounds amazing.
I'll send to you the reference, the Amazon thing, and then at least 4 or 5 things around this. But team, so that's, these are the 2 groups. One of them is going to be design thinking. The other one is creativity in teams.
Yeah,
that just went. But I'm going to stop for the time being. I think okay. So. It's